There's a comfortable story people like to tell about France in World War II. That France collapsed because its tanks were outdated, because its armor was thin, because its engineers failed to keep up with modern warfare. That story is neat. It's simple. And it's wrong. France entered World War II with tanks that were heavily armored, well-armed, and in some cases superior to anything Germany fielded in 1940. Tanks that German crews feared. Tanks that absorbed hit after hit and kept moving. Tanks that, on paper, should never have lost so quickly. So if French tanks weren't weak, then what were they? Before we talk about doctrine, command, or collapse, we have to do something simpler and more honest. We have to look at what France actually built. Vehicle by vehicle. Role by role. Design by design. This is not a battle recap. This is not a theory video. This is a complete visual catalog of every French tank used in World War II, from the relics of the First World War to the machines that fought, survived, and were repurposed long after France itself had fallen. 1. Renault FT, the origin. The Renault FT was already obsolete by the time World War II began. Designed during the First World War, it was small, slow, and lightly armed, carrying either a machine gun or a short 37mm cannon. But its importance was historical. The FT introduced the fully rotating turret, a design that would define tanks for the rest of the century. By 1939, the FT no longer belonged on a modern battlefield. France used it in rear area duties, training units, and colonial deployments. It wasn't meant to fight Germany in 1940. It simply hadn't been fully replaced yet. 2. Renault R35, the infantry shield. The Renault R35 was the backbone of France's armored forces. Over 1,600 were built. Slow, heavily armored for its size, and designed to operate alongside infantry, the R35 reflected France's defensive priorities. Its short 37mm gun was effective against infantry and fortifications, but limited against modern tanks. The biggest limitation wasn't firepower, it was workload. With a two-man crew and a one-man turret, the commander had to observe, command, load, aim, and fire simultaneously. The R35 did its job, just not the job the war demanded. 3. Hotchkiss H35/H39, the cavalry compromise. The Hotchkiss H35 and later H39 were faster and more mobile than the R35. Designed for cavalry units, they offered better suspension and improved cross-country performance. The H39's upgraded engine pushed speeds to around 36 km per hour, making it one of France's more mobile light tanks. But despite these improvements, the same limitations remained: cramped turret, limited situational awareness, and a gun that lagged behind the pace of armored warfare. For FCM-36, the experiment. The FCM-36 was rare, just over 100 built, but notable. It featured welded armor rather than rivets, reducing internal spalling when hit. This was forward-thinking engineering. Unfortunately, it shared the same infantry support limitations as other French light tanks and saw only limited combat before being overtaken by events. 5. Char B1/B1 bis, the armored giant. The Char B1 was France's heavy tank, and it was terrifying. With armor up to 60mm thick and dual armament, a 75mm hull howitzer and a 47mm turret gun, it was nearly immune to early German anti-tank weapons. German reports describe shells bouncing off its armor as it advanced methodically through panzer formations. But the Char B1 paid a price for its power. It consumed fuel rapidly, required complex maintenance, and overloaded its commander with impossible responsibilities. Only about 400 were built. They fought brilliantly, but they were too few, too complex, and too scattered. 6. Somua S35, the balanced design. If one French tank deserved a different fate, it was the Somua S35. Fast, well-armored, and armed with the excellent 47mm SA-35 gun, the S-35 was a true modern tank. It could engage German armor on equal terms and often win. Its only flaw was the same one that plagued the rest of France's designs: a one-man turret. Around 500 were built. Enough to matter, but not enough to change the outcome alone. 7. Renault R40, too late. The R40 was an improved R35 with a longer 37mm gun and slightly better performance. Only about 130 were completed before France fell. It represented adaptation, but adaptation that came too late. 8. MR33/MR35, the Scouts. These were reconnaissance vehicles, fast, lightly armored, and lightly armed. They were never meant to fight tanks. They were meant to see first, move fast, and report back. Used correctly, they worked. Used incorrectly, they were destroyed quickly. 9. AMC-34/MC-35, the in-between. The AMC series attempted to bridge the gap between light scouts and medium tanks. Armed with a 47mm gun and designed for mobile operations, they saw limited production and scattered service. They were competent, but overshadowed by better designs. 10. D1/D2, the transition. The D1 and D2 were early medium tanks from the 1930s. The D2 was better armored and better armed, but limited numbers and logistical complexity kept it from widespread use. They represented evolution, not revolution. Counterclockwise arrows button. After 1940, what remained? After France fell, its tanks didn't disappear. Some fought under Vichy control. Some served with free French units. Many were captured and reused by Germany. By 1944, French crews were fighting in American-built Shermans. French in spirit, Allied in steel. This is what France built. Not weak machines. Not outdated ideas. But a diverse armored force shaped by a war France thought it would fight. Not the war that arrived. The tanks were real. The armor was real. The firepower was real. What happened to them is another story.